Hello, everyone. Today is Wednesday, December 8th, 2021. My name is Jack McMahon, and on behalf of VMUG, I'd like to welcome you to today's Dell Technologies webcast, a deep dive into VMware integration with Dell EMC PowerMax. Today, we've got Drew Tonneson here. He's an engineering technical staff at Dell Technologies. Before we begin, I just have three quick housekeeping items to go over. First, today's webcast will be recorded and available for you on demand. You will get an email with the on-demand link, so keep an eye out for that. Second, a Q&A session will follow today's presentation if there is still time. All questions need to be entered into the question and answer section on the side. Feel free to ask questions throughout the presentation, but we will handle all of those questions at the end. Third, there will be a short online evaluation that pops up when I end the webcast. Please take a minute to let us know what you thought of today's session and what you might like to see going forward. Final note, all attendees from today's webcast who opted their information in at registration will be entered into a raffle to win an Amazon Echo Dot. The winner will be contacted directly by Dell Technologies, so best of luck. And with that, we'll get started. Drew, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thanks, Jack. So let me open up here and we'll do the share. So my name is Drew Tonneson. I work for Dell Technology in kind of a mix of groups, PowerFlex and PowerMax. Those are two of our storage platforms. I've spent most of my time on PowerMax, and I work on VMware integrations. So I do a lot of the testing, and then I produce white papers and tech books. I also keep a blog, which I'll have linked at the end, which can give you access to everything that I'm going to talk about. And I go through examples, mostly derived from you, from customers who ask me either how to do certain things or have a particular situation they want to see if they can do, and I'll try to mimic it and then write about it without revealing your names, of course. Everything is anonymous. So today I'm going to go into some of our integrations that we have. Most of this is going to be around automation. It's one of the areas that is becoming more popular with customers. You know, how can I have my users execute certain tasks without me having to get involved? If I'm a storage admin on the back end, I want my VMware admin to do it, or I want my developers to be able to work within Kubernetes and access our storage. And we have different plugins that work for those. On top of it, it's a demo-focused presentation. I know a lot of these, including one I've delivered in the past with a colleague of mine, tend to be a little bit more marketing. This is more technical. I want you to actually see, how these work. There are a couple of live demos, one of which I'll ask your patience with because if my lab is a bit slow, and some are recorded. The recorded ones, I'm not trying to trick you with them. It's just that some of the tasks take a long time, and we don't want to sit here and have spinning wheels while these things are happening. It's much easier to show you. So here's our high level. I've kind of broken out. I'll go into integration. I'll just show you the areas that we play within VMware, the different types of plugins we have. I'll include everything on there pretty much, but we won't obviously be covering all of it. We're going to do an automation section. We'll go through a Kubernetes section, which will be the CSI driver, along with new CSM modules. We'll do a demo on that. That's the one that may be a little slow. But I'll do that one live for you. I want to talk about Ansible, which is a capability to do what are called playbooks, where the benefit of those revolve around that you don't have to debug things and reset environments. It has the ability to just figure out what's there and what's not. VRO plugins, so if you use the vRealize suite with VMware, so we'll go in and show how that works. PowerShell, pretty popular, believe it or not. Windows environments, our customers like using PowerShell. So that one would be a live. I think I can do that one live. And then VSI, this one's been around forever. I think we've had one since ESXi 3.5. And this is our integration into the vCenter. gives you some ability to look at storage, lets you create data stores, does some best practices. We have a new plugin which came out very recently for Veeam. This is obviously very specific to this product, but I wanted to show you. I'm sure a lot of you don't use Veeam, but if you do, you'll be able to see how it would work in that environment. And we'll wrap things up talking about SRDF Metro Smart DR, which is a special configuration of an active-active environment for replication. And I just want to show you how that's set up and just talk a little bit about it. So here's our integration summary. I'm not going to go through all of this. This is our high level into it. You have on the left-hand side at the top, those first three, we talk about things that are innate to VMware. So, things that are going to be in the kernel, the vStorage APIs, VAI, VASA, the type of protocols being used, FCM, VME, and then in the future, things like TCP, virtual volumes, which is part of VASA, inherent to the product. Then we have some of our own products. We have Unisphere. Unisphere has an integration which allows the storage admin to look at the VMware environment. Can't do anything with it. This is a read-only view, but we have found it to be very helpful. Storage admins like it because they can see what's going on in the VMware environment and have better conversations with the VMware administrators. We have the vRealize stuff after that, ESA, Log Insight. Again, those are part of the vRealize suite that you can take advantage of. Cloud Foundation, so VMware pushing hard in this space, Tanzu, Cloud Foundation. It's most associated with vSAN, but we have the capability to create workloads on principal storage. So you can use Fiber Channel, you can use vVols to create these workloads on. And so we plug in there nicely. Next 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, these are all the ones we're going to talk about here, so I'm not even going to go into them. And then the last thing, which I'm not talking about today, which I tend to talk about a lot, is the storage replication adapter for Site Recovery Manager. So we're not going to talk about Site Recovery Manager, but when I share my blog at the end, if you use that and want information, there's tons. So automation. So container storage interface, CSI driver. So the CSI driver is something that is the standard interface on Kubernetes that allows you to provision storage for stateful applications, persistent volumes. So Kubernetes in general and containers, we think about them as being ephemeral, right? They're things that you want to spin up, spin down. Typically, you don't care about the information on them. You're not trying to save any data. You just need a process to run, and you need it to be resilient with HA. But more and more, these applications that are running on them, particularly things like databases, and for example, VSI, which I'll talk about, we run VSI as containers, and we have a Redis database where we have to store information, so we need persistent volumes. And so these persistent volumes with CSI can be used and attached to more than one container. They obviously live beyond the life of the container. And the CSI is a standard interface, so everybody, and everybody by that I mean storage vendors, we all write to the same thing. So they have the same capabilities for each of the array vendors available, not that each array vendor makes them available to their customers, but they inside their spec, so they can be taken advantage of. So we're compliant with version 1.3 of CSI, so we support snapshots, raw blocks, expansion, cloning. We'll talk about replication also. We use a volume prefix, so it's easy to locate inside your Unisphere environment, so you always know that this particular volume is allocated to Kubernetes. And all of these projects are all done on GitHub, so you can go and you can clone them and bring them down and use them immediately. The other thing about CSI driver, I should say, when it comes to VMware is usually we think about a CSI driver in a physical environment, right? So this is something that is allowing you to provision by Fiber Channel, by iSCSI. In a VMware environment, we think about data stores, and VMware has their own CSI driver that they have, which creates objects inside of data stores, right? Or you can use vVols. So when you use it in a VMware environment, usually you're doing direct attached iSCSI or fiber channel, typically iSCSI, because fiber channel you have to do a pass-through. So the environment I'll show you is actually iSCSI. So I have a virtual machine that's attached directly to iSCSI, and that's how I'm provisioning these volumes. Container storage modules. So this is a new concept that came out that we now support. So the idea behind them is that they're meant to provide the users of Kubernetes a more universal way to request capabilities, okay? In this case, there are these 6 different modules: placement, snapshots, observability, replication, authorization, resiliency. And the way that you request this information, so if you want to go in and focus on replication, if you want to request that a volume is replicated, that request will be done the same way across any storage that you work with, right? So again, the specification, all the storage vendors write into the specification. We have multiple arrays that we support with CSM, PowerStore, PowerMax, PowerFlex. The commands themselves, though, that are issued in Kubernetes are the same. So no matter which one you're going to issue to, they're going to be the same. And then the difference is, maybe in how you specify the configuration file when you install the driver, or perhaps the way that you specify the storage class so that it knows how to handle a replicated volume on PowerMax, on PowerStore, PowerFlex. Okay. Right now in the PowerMax world, we support, I believe, replication and authorization, right? Some of the other platforms support more, and in the future, we will also have more capability. And this is kind of just a high level what the architecture looks like. Again, the idea here is to simplify the commands that those using Kubernetes would have to issue, and they could care less what's the underlying storage because they can issue the same command for replication on each one. Right. So let's pop out of here and look at the replication piece and then do the demo. So replication gets installed as a separate container. Okay. Again, this is available on GitHub. You just clone the repository and install it. It's quite simple. On the PowerMax, we support async, sync, and metro mode. And you can do replication of a volume between Kubernetes clusters. So if you have multiple clusters and you want to go between them, which is kind of the idea, or you can do it on the same box within a single cluster. That's what I'm going to show you because I just have a single Kubernetes cluster. But if you were doing metro, potentially you might just be doing it in the same cluster anyway. There are DR activities that are supported: failover, planned and unplanned failover, reprotect capability, which in our case is a swapping of RDF, and maintenance activities. You can do a suspend, resume, or synchronize, but reestablish. So let's take a look at this environment. So this is my Kubernetes environment. Let's get the pods just so I can show you, what's running. You can ignore my crash loopbacks and all that stuff. So here you can see I have my replication controller, which is running here, right? These are my PowerMax node, my CSI driver here for my PowerMax, okay? Now, the way that you manage the environment for replication with CSM is with a utility called repctl. Okay, repctl just makes your life a little bit easier when you're issuing commands. So in order to replicate a particular volume, create it and replicate it, we first create replication classes, okay? So these replication classes are both on the source and on the target, right? So we have to have one of each. If I want to, let me see, I can quickly create, I think, a storage class. So let's create this one here. So let's do this here, which is repctl, and we'll do SC16. Let's see. And config and create CTL-16-. Probably be better if I spelled it right. So here, what this will do is it goes out and creates these replication classes. So you can see my class is going to be made up of, is this replicated, my class name, cluster ID. If I had multiple clusters, these would actually be in the ID of the Kubernetes cluster. In this case, it's just self because I'm just doing it to its own. And then it has RDF mode and then where you want to place it. This array, this SLO, this replication group. Replication group has to exist already. It doesn't create it for you, so that you have to make sure that that's out there and available. And then similarly, you can see on the other side, same thing, right? So this is my other array. Now, what we can do at that point is you can create pairs. So if we look at our RDF pairs, so I would go in and create this volume claim. Okay, so this 3 gig volume claim for that storage class. And by doing that, let's see. Let's look at the replication group. Once I request that volume be created, it will create these replication groups for me. And these replication groups will contain whatever devices I've told it to create. So if we look at this particular group, you can see I have my source here, true. So this is my local cluster, quote unquote, and this is my remote cluster, which is the same thing, but it is my remote array, so it's not the source, so it's false. And they're synchronized. So if I were to jump out into Unisphere out here, you can see that I have my replication group here, 12, and I have my volumes here, which are synchronized. Right? And what I can do is I can issue, as I said, commands to, so if I wanted to issue a command to, let's say, suspend operation. So I could come out here and I could say, okay, I want to suspend operation on my particular replication group. And then if I list it, it will eventually enter a suspension. You can see here where it says the state is now suspend in progress, and it will run through and suspend my pair for me. So if I come back out to Unisphere here and I ran through refresh, this pair state, as I said, this environment's a little bit slow. The pair state will move to suspended. Right? So similarly, if I wanted to fail over, do a swap, do a migration, that's all available through here. And then the cleanup is just as easy too. You can go in and tell it to clean up the pairs and it will remove these replication groups. So this is, base functionality, CSM, where your users are going to be able to replicate volumes in case they have multiple clusters or they would like to have a replicated volume available for recovery purposes within a Kubernetes environment. All right. Ansible. So Ansible modules are for the purposes of automation. I'm sorry, I should note, if you have questions, definitely put them in the Q&A and I'll answer them at the end just to prevent us from going back and forth. But definitely write them down so you don't have to remember them at the end. The nice thing about Ansible is they're really easy. It's a low bar of entry. The programming, the YAML file is really easy to create. Again, we're going to be using the REST API of Unisphere. So all these plugins are going to use the REST API. So that's what we're basing everything on. Makes it a little bit easier. You don't have to worry about installing extra software for this stuff to work because, in fact, you can use the REST API that's part of your embedded Unisphere that runs on your PowerMax. So you can have an external environment, but you don't need to. You can just use the one that's internal. These are written in Python. We have modules for all of the platforms again. The big thing about Ansible is this idempotent. So what this basically means is that Ansible is fault tolerant. So if I run through and I do a whole bunch of commands inside of a script, right? Let's say in a normal environment, and it fails somewhere along the script. I can't run that script again normally because it'll die right away because it'll say, well, you've already created these objects, so you can't do anything. And then I've got to go backwards, clean up, rerun it, and this debugging is endless or can feel endless. In this case, what Ansible does is it's able to recognize things are already complete. And so it says, all right, so you've already done this. I'll just pop on to the next one and then the next one. So you have the benefit here of having it, you can just keep running the script over and over again until each object that you want created is created without having to go through and undo things and then rerun. So let me show you what that looks like. This one is we're gonna can this one here so you can see. So what I'm gonna do here is this one's pretty straightforward. These are playbooks. So the Ansible pieces are called playbooks, and the playbook is just a YAML file that has the script information. And what I'm doing here is this particular script does a provisioning. So it's gonna go through, and you can see it, I'll highlight it, but it'll create a storage group, it'll add volumes to it, it'll create a host, a port group, and then finally it'll put it all together in a masking view, which is how we present storage down. So what this will do now is it's going to run through and then along. And right in the middle of the script as it's popping through, I'm going to cancel it. So here we go, we're going to run the playbook. And the first thing it's going to do, as you saw, was create the storage group. So it comes through, it says, okay, I've created the storage group. I'm going to add some volumes. And then what do? I cancel it. So right after the volumes got created, I did a Control C, boom. So I canceled it. So let's go out and look at the array, what got done, right? So we should have, what I expect to see is a storage group. So we should have that storage group, Ansible host, and it did, you can see right there, it created a volume. So it got down to the storage group, the volume, and let's see if it created the host, because I forget, that's where I canceled it. So there's no Ansible host here. And obviously there's no port group and there's no masking view because that's where it got canceled. So we'll pop back out, and all we're going to do is rerun the same script, right? Not doing anything different. I'm just going to run the same command. And what you'll see now is instead of that green, or I'm sorry, instead of the yellow here, what you're going to see here now is Ansible host went through, my PG went through, my masking view. These two, okay, because, well, let me pop back out here, because they were already changed, right? So it recognized that they had already been run, and so it said, I don't have to do them, and then it just popped on to the ones it had to do, which were port group, initiator group, and masking view. So when we come back out to the Unisphere, what we see when we go in and we look at the host, here's our host now, and then it created our host, it created our port group, and then finally it created our masking view. So it's really powerful that you can go in and continue to just rerun scripts all the time until you are able to get them to run. It makes debugging a lot easier where you don't have to back things out. All right. So VRO. So the VRO Realize Orchestrator, if you use the vRealize products, one of the integrations is with the vRealize Orchestrator, and this particular integration allows you to do the same type of activities as things you could do in Ansible or things you could ways that you could provision in Unisphere. So we have workflows that will go in and allow you to provision data stores, provision storage groups, masking views, pretty much anything you can do in Unisphere that we allow you to do through these workflows, including protecting environments with replication. Right now, we support VRO 8.4 as a little bit of a pain point for some customers because 8.4 is a bit old. Next week, we release support for 8.5. 8.6 is in testing, and that's what I'm going to show you here. If you absolutely needed 8.6, you could actually submit something through your salesperson at Dell, and they could get you provisional support if you needed it. One thing I'll point out about VRA in relationship with VRO is normally what you can do is you can run workflows through VRA and execute them so that you can create catalog items. That is still true, but VMware has a pretty bad bug that prevents some selection of options when you run workflows. So unfortunately, some of these workflows would have to be hard-coded in order to run through VRA, and that's just a VMware issue currently. But let's run through the VRO, and so you can see how this one works. So this is the 8.6 automation. Starting, I forget what version, VMware kind of put everything together with VRA and VRO. They used to be separate products that generally you would keep apart and then integrate together, and now they're all just part of the same thing. So you can see there's an Orchestrator link here now. Just click that, and then that brings up the Orchestrator console. The plugin gets installed within the control center for VRO. It goes in, it's a VMOAPP file. It's just a plugin. You can see there it is. The only configuration you do in the beginning is you add Unisphere. That's my Unisphere environment, the .17, and I have one vCenter in this particular environment. This is the existing vCenter that we're going to use, and I want to show you the provisioning through the workflow that creates a data store. So this is our, let's just filter through VMFS. And we're going to do a provision of VMFS data store to the ESX cluster. So you can run it from here again. This is something that you can also issue through VRA as you create a catalog item, but there's the bug, so I'm doing it this way. When you do it this way, you basically just have to, put your cursor inside the entry point for the cluster, type in something, and it will show you what clusters are out there. There's my London cluster. We'll give it a data store name. I'm only going to create one. And then we still offer a VMFS 5 version, just in case you have an older version of vSphere. So it highlights it automatically autofills those for me, since I only have one array and I only have one initiator group. And I'll give it a new masking view name. And we'll grab an existing port group rather than a new port group. Although again, you can create all the new objects on the fly if you want to. In this case, I'm creating a new storage group. Choose whether you want to enable compression and deduplication, storage resource pool, and a service level if you care to give it one. And then finally, we specify how many volumes we want to create and their size. Run that. They have a nice log interface, actually. This is a change from a number of versions back. So you can actually watch everything that's going on, searching for initiators, making sure everything is kosher in our vCenter environment before it goes through the provisioning process. So if we go back over to VR, you can see down there in the tasks here where we're running our rescans, our refreshes. It's already provisioned the devices. I should note this is real time, by the way. I didn't shorten the video. It actually is this fast. It's really quick to do this. And there's our data store. So then, good to go. The VMware admin can take that and use it to their delight. And you can see down here, if you wanted to look at, all the extra information about, the metadata and, why that didn't use all the space, and then finally added the data store DS. So there's lots of workflows in VRO that are made available. Some are specific to VMware, but other ones are not. So you could actually use VRO plugin to issue devices and storage groups masking views to physical servers. So it has that capability to be used in both environments, even though it's being issued from a VMware environment. Great. So the PowerShell module, this was a request from customers for quite a while. They wanted the ability to do much of what I just showed you the VRO might do or Ansible might do. They said, okay, well, we'd like to also do that in PowerShell. Okay, easy enough for us in the sense that it's the REST API. So we're going to do the exact same thing that that we've done in the other workflows. For the current PowerShell module, we offer all those capabilities: host, storage group, volume. Same type of things you would expect from the REST API, which is extremely robust. So in order to use it, again, all you need is that REST API point. This one, I think we'll do live. Hopefully this will be okay. The module just gets installed. You can install it from the library itself, from the Microsoft library, or you can just download it and then install it from here. You can see here PowerMax, and the first thing that we do is we run a connection. So we have to connect the environment to our REST API. So this is my REST, and then I save the credentials, and then I put it in a variable. This becomes very useful because Unisphere is going to be required in every command. So you definitely want to put that in a variable to start. So I've already connected. If I connect again, it will error. So we just want to pull the existing arrays. So let's look at those. What is it? PowerMax array, and we'll do it this way. So I have that single array attached, 1879, which is the one we've been using. PowerMax 8000, my Ucode level. So let's go out and create, let me see, let's create a storage group. I think that's what we're going to do here. So we're going to create a storage group called pshell sg, srp1, and then a SLO of diamond. So we'll create that storage group, standalone, compression true by default. And then let's give it some volumes. There's not much use if we don't give it some volumes. So volumes here, I'm going to supply 2 volumes, each 40 gig. And I have this identifier choice and identifier name. This is just for the volume identifier. These are not required, but if you wanted to give it a volume identifier so it's easier to find in Unisphere, volume 1, volume 2. And to that end, if we come out to Unisphere and we look at our storage groups, we can see here we have pshell sg, right? So here's our storage group and our 2 volumes, okay? Now let's come out and let's create a snapshot. So I think we want to create a snapshot here. So a new storage group snapshot. This uses SnapVX, right? So incredibly fast because SnapVX creates snapshots that are targetless. So it's just there's no device associated with it. It's just a point in time snapshot of that group. But if we want to use it and say, okay, I have the snapshot, I would like to link it to devices because I want to use it in some environment, we can issue a storage group snapshot to link it, right? So we're going to link the storage group snapshot to the array. We'll give it the original storage group ID, and then we'll give it a snapshot ID here, and then a target name. The cool thing about this particular command is it's going to go out and not only does it create the devices for the snapshot, but it will also create the storage group for us on top of it. So if I come out here and do a quick refresh, I should have another storage group here called pshell snap sg, and there it is. See here. So here I have one snapshot for that primary group I created. Okay, and then I have one link storage group, which is the one I just told it to create. And there's my link volumes. And now if I wanted to take that storage group, I could put it inside of a masking view and present it to a host for use of testing or recovery or whatever. I don't, not much of a PowerShell guy, but I know PowerShell developers, and it's very robust. I mean, you could do lots of things, with this besides these little, menial commands I'm running here. But you can see here where we're trying to offer customers the ability to do automation wherever you want to do it. Whatever systems, applications you use in your environment, we probably have a plugin that can use the REST API and deliver storage for you that way. VSI. So as I said, VSI has been around for a really long time. And then each version is, gets a little bit more information into it. I did mention how it's a container-based implementation. So it's a virtual appliance, but it runs Photon, which is VMware's pared down operating system. And Docker containers run within Photon. So there's two containers. There's AIPI, which is it's the meat, it's the application. And then there's the Redis database, as I was talking about, where we're, want to store that persistent information. The third part of it would be the plugin itself, which is actually exposed in the vSphere client, right? So that's going to be pushed to vSphere client, like SRM. If you use SRM, it pushes that as a plugin and gets installed for you. The nice thing about being containers is that when we do upgrades within VSI, you can just use Docker Hub, right? If you're not locked down. If you're locked down, you can download the offline bundle and upgrade, but we offer Docker Hub so you can do upgrades pretty easily. VSI offers a whole bunch of capabilities. Probably definitely the oldest and the most common use case I see is the in-context storage translation. And what I mean by that is basically I can click on a device and it shows me, or data store, and it shows me the device information on the back end. So this is kind of equivalent of what a storage admin would get with Unisphere, where they can see the VMware information. And this kind of turns it around and says, as a VMware administrator, I would like to see the actual storage on the back end, and this will do that for you. We also have a few different extras. You can do manual space reclamation if you're not using automated unmap. And we have some best practice capabilities where you can set the NMP or multipathing to 1 and create a rule, and then the Xcopy rule to increase your efficiency for things like cloning. So let's come out here to VSI. Let's pop that one open. So VSI looks like this within the vSphere client. We have a dashboard, and you can see here where it has the information about storage groups and vCenters. I'm going to create a data store. I'm going to provision that. We have a VSI menu. So there you can see there, by the way, the host best practices and the space reclamation as those are available too. So we're just going to create a single data store here called the VSI Demo. And there's my storage system, which you're familiar with at this point, 1879. You can do a space reclamation priority here, which basically is either low or off. Those are your options. So what this is going to do is the same thing that you saw VRO do. You can see down here, it's going to go through and provision the device within Unisphere. It's then going to present that device through a masking view, and then it's going to come out and create a data store on the VMware environment. And if you come out here and you have your highlighted data store here, we have a widget here for VSI where it gives you that information, what I call the in-context storage translation. about the particular device. So here I can come out and see the details of my device. So I get all that nice information, volume ID, storage group, SRP. It'll tell me if it has a snapshot associated with it, all that stuff. Speaking of snapshots, we also have the capability to take snapshots of the data store. So you can come out and take a snapshot of a data store and restore it back to the VMware environment, and it will go through and do the resignature of the data store for you and make it available again for recovery or for testing purposes. So you kind of, again, get the idea here. VRO was doing the same type of thing. All these plugins are able to do these capabilities. We can link the snapshot. Now, in this case, I'm actually going to provision the devices directly back to the same storage group for ease of use. One question I get a lot with VSI, and most of this comes from storage administrators, is can I prevent my VMware administrator from doing anything? Sometimes there's not a lot of love lost between storage admin, VMware admin. There's security around all of this. So the storage admin has to provide access to the REST API at the level of storage admin that it needs to in order to create devices and things like that. If all you want is the VMware administrator to be able to see this device information like this, then you can just provide the perfmon role to a particular user, and then they'll only be able to view stuff. So I've seen both. Most customers, I have to say, tend to use it in a read-only capability. But one of the powerful things about it comes down to performance. So if you have an issue in your environment with performance, before you blame the storage admin and before the storage admin tells you it's a VMware issue, the nice thing is that you can find out, information about the data store device here, and then you have something to provide to the storage admin and say, well, this VM is having major problems. It looks like a device problem, and I know the device that it lives on is this device. Can you go look in Unisphere and see, what perhaps is the issue with it? And then that way, it kind of helps figure out, get down to the brass, tacks of what the problem is versus kind of the blame game, which tends to go on. So that's VSI. So Veeam. So Veeam is a plugin that became available pretty recently, a couple of months ago, I believe. We support the backup replication software 10 or 11. 11 is their latest. This plugin is available from the Veeam website. You just download it. One thing I didn't mention, but because I always think it's just known, is that all these plugins are free. There's no charge for any plugin to any of the products that we have. Again, I mean, it's on GitHub, so you can probably figure it's free. But there's no charge for this either. All this stuff is free. It's obviously just licensed software that it gets installed into. So if you use Veeam for backup, Veeam backs up your environment at the virtual machine level. Of course, it's, when it's integrated with PowerMax, we're backing it up at the device level. It allows you to take snapshots, just individual manual snapshots. You can set up rules. You can mount it elsewhere. Anything you can do with Veeam, basically, you're able to offload to the array, right? So, Veeam without this plugin is going to use network CPU memory resources. It's going to take a lot of extra resources to run. When you use the array, then you're able to offload that to the array. And not only do you save all that stuff, you also reduce the RPO and RTO because it's able to restore stuff so quickly. Because when we do restores, we actually don't wait for data to copy. We don't need to. We just make the restore immediately available, and then we just copy on the back end. So the Veeam, pop out and look at our demo for Veeam. So this is the backup replication software. This is version 10. After you install the plugin, we're going to provision a REST API server. You're going to provision your Unisphere server, right? And you come in, you can see all the different storages available. We have a whole bunch of other Dell EMC products like Unity and Compellent, I think, that are available. Currently, PowerStore is either available now or coming very soon also. This is just the DNS or the IP address of your REST API. Again, this can be embedded or it can be external. And we do have a minimum required, which I've put in there helpfully in the description. Let's pop through credentials, blah, blah, blah. So what we're going to do out here is we're going to go out and discover all our storage. Your protocol here is whichever one you're using. I happen to have both, so I have both checked, but you're just going to use Fiber Channel or iSCSI. NFS is not supported, and vVols are not supported by Veeam. They don't back up vVols yet. So what it's going to do, it'll go out and then scan all our storage for us. And I'm just going to pop through here, make it available here for us. So it'll list all the devices that we have, right? These devices are available. These are all the ones available on the array. Physical, virtual, doesn't matter. So if you want to take snapshots from here for your physical environment, you can. You don't have to use a different utility. And I have 2 vCenters configured. And when I go in and take a backup, I just right-click on it and then just tell it to add the backup. Or actually, what am I doing here? I'm going to do a restore. So I have a virtual machine I want to restore. I'm going to come in and do recovery. And what I'm able to do is, let me highlight it here so you can see. So I have all these snapshots on the array available, targetless snapshots. Remember, there's no device associated with these. And I'm able to pick whichever one I want when I go in to restore this particular virtual machine. So this can be really helpful, if you need to get to a point in time, especially for recovery purposes. You dropped a table or something and you got to restore something like that. You can restore to the original location, put it on the same server, obviously rename the data store, or you can have it go to a different host. As long as it's able to provision to it through, your particular protocol, then you can use it. So we're just going to rename it because I'm sending it back where it originally was, so I don't want to get a conflict. And we'll just finish there. So what this is going to do is the same thing I showed you in the other plugins. It's going to go and create a new device. It's going to bind that device. It'll link it to that snapshot, present that device down to the environment, and then VMware is going to do its thing. It's going to go in, resignature the data store, and then Veeam is going to go in and tell it to register the virtual machine. So here's there's my restored VM. And then I can do what I need to do with it, and then at that point, I simply can just back out of the whole thing, or I can leave it there permanently and say, okay, I'm just going to leave it because I need to use it for a certain amount of time. And the last thing I wanted to cover here was SRDF Metro DR. SRDF Metro is our active-active solution. So this allows you to do 2 arrays, 2 synchronous devices, both accessible read-write from your environment. Most often in a VMware environment, you're using VMSC, VM Metro Storage Cluster. So I would have a single vCenter with all my hosts in it up here. And then I would be attached to the Metro one array or the other array. Some customers like to do cross-connect and they like to have all hosts see all arrays. And our recommendation is local host see local array for performance reasons. What Metro DR gives you, though, is when you have a third array, you're able to configure it so that each of these devices in this active-active solution write to a single device down on another array. And the benefit of that is in an HA solution here, if I lose one of these sides, right, my environment is still up and going. But in previous 3-site configurations, when you have a device down here, it's attached to one or it's attached to the other. It can't be attached to both. And so if you lost the one that was writing to this, you're done because this one wasn't seeing this one. And then you had to recreate a new environment down here, which could take way too much time. So what this does is each one of these can write to this. So no matter which one goes down, the other one continues to write down to the device in the third array. So I just wanted to show you what it looks like for the setup, because the setup is just really quick and simple because we do everything through Unisphere for this. So when you have a storage group that's presented to your environment, right? So we're going to start with this Metro storage group, which is one of those top ones, the A or Rack Metro. So this is an Oracle environment I have. And what I want to do is I want to take that storage group, which is currently only on a single array, and I want to protect it using Metro DR. So I have 2 other arrays available, and it's just going to ask me that information. Tell me what your first array is, and tell me what you want to call the storage group, and ask, if you want, I will set up the replication groups for you. You don't have to do anything, and then show me your third array. Again, provide the name, provide the type of SRDF group, existing or create one, and then give it a name up top, what you want to call the Metro DR environment. Just get rid of the SG and run that. And that's it. So it will go out and do everything for me. I don't have to do anything. It'll go through and run through all the tasks it needs to, create the group, create the SRDF group, the storage group, create the devices, pair everything up, synchronize everything, and you can come out and look at the storage groups on each array. So here I have now my storage group. See here. And then if I click on that yes Metro DR environments, I can come in and see all the detail about the status of it. And this is where I could find out if there was a failure anywhere, if I have problems with the witness, let's say, or something like that. So you can see here, over here, Metro state active, HA, and we have this lovely little diagram here which can show you each array and then each connection, right? So 355, 450, this is my configuration for active, and then here's my active passive, right? My async. At any one time, only one of these arrays is writing down. So these are all the references which I have here. These are available links which you can click right on, and they'll go to the different products that we talked about, different plugins, if any of them interest you. I have an external blog here at the bottom. These will all be in here. If you clicked on my external blog and just search for something, you'll also find these links. I have pages for them and stuff, but I've included them here. So I am going to do that, and I think I have to stop sharing, right, Jack, to look at the questions?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing here and then just jump out and see if we can answer any questions. If I can find our presenter console. Is that right? I don't have any questions?
No, I mean, I think that means you did a great job explaining everything, so no one has any questions.
Or everybody is asleep.
I doubt that. You kept me super engaged.
So, I mean, if any of the demos are of interest, by the way, you can send me a note. You have my email, and I will push it out to my blog, and then you can watch it there. I do have most of the videos on the blog, though, in some form or another. And if you have any questions, you guys can feel free to send me a direct email, and I'd be happy to answer anything if it comes up later.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Drew. I mean, we definitely appreciate you taking the time. It was super informative, and I mean, I'm sure everybody learned a lot. As a reminder to the audience, you will get a follow-up email with an on-demand link from today's webcast. You can watch it over and over and over again. And then to find out more about the VMUG webcast program, visit vmug.com and check out the webcast page. And then I'm going to hit end here in a couple minutes or a couple seconds, actually, and you guys will get the short online evaluation that will pop up. So please, let us know how the session went. Tell us how great Drew was. And from all of us here at VMUG, thank you and have a great rest of your day. Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Drew. Thank you, Jack.